How many games would the Denver Broncos win in 2025? What's going on, Broncos country, as we call Broncos fans? It's your boy Mayon Jones here, back at with another NFL record prediction. And this time, we'll be doing an NFL record prediction for the Denver Broncos for a 2025 NFL season. Give you my game thoughts, my game analysis, which games I think the Broncos will win, and which games I think the Broncos are going to lose. So before I give you my record prediction for the Denver Broncos for a 2025 NFL season, don't forget to put a thumbs up to like the video, subscribe to my channel for more options, and don't forget to comment down your opinion below to see how good you think the Broncos will be. Do you think the Broncos make it to the playoffs again? Do you think they'll win the division, or you think they'll miss out on the playoffs and take a step back? Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think. So, week one, the Denver Broncos have to play at home against Tennessee Titans. Obviously, as y'all know it, I got the Broncos winning. And the reason for that is, the Broncos are at home in this game. They have a better quarterback. They have the better coaching staff. And they're just a much more complete team. And I wouldn't trust a rookie on the road against that good of a defense as well. And that's pretty much why I think the Broncos win. Then week two, same thing against the Colts. I think they'll beat the Colts as well. Because the Colts are going to be one of the worst teams in the league along with the Titans. The Colts are going to be one of the worst teams in the league because I don't know who's starting at quarterback for the Colts. Is it going to be Daniel Jones? Is it going to be Anthony Richardson? Who knows? If it's Anthony Richardson, I don't really see how the Colts offensively are going to be able to throw the ball to get after that Broncos secondary, because the Broncos secondary is really good. They can play man coverage. They can lock receivers down, and like I said, the Broncos have one of the best run defenses in football, and I feel like they're gonna find a way to stop the Colts running game to keep their offense off of balance, and and on top of that, the Broncos got the better passing game and a much more explosive offense, especially through the passing game. And also, don't forget, last year when these two teams played, the game was in Denver and the Broncos did whoop them. So that's something you got to remember. But I think they can probably do it again, though, because I feel like if they can get up early like they did before, I think they can blow the Colts out. Because I feel like the Broncos, they got the better quarterback, they've got the better coaching staff, and they're the much more complete team. So that's why I think the Broncos will win to start off 2-0. Then against the Los Angeles Chargers. Obviously, I think they'll lose to the Chargers once. So I'm going to say they lose the Chargers the first game because the game's in L.A. And L.A. is a tricky place to play at because they got to deal with that crowd noise and communication. And the Chargers are like a power running team. And the Chargers do typically play the Broncos hard. So basically, I think the Chargers will win this game. Then week 4 against Cincinnati Bengals on a Monday night in Denver. I actually got the Broncos winning that game against the Bengals just because I just think, the Broncos, I just had a feeling that the Broncos got the much more, they got the better defense and they got the better coaching staff. And I just think, that the Broncos defense could totally give the Bengals offense and Joe Burrow some fits. But I feel like if they can get a pass rush on Joe Burrow, I feel like there's a chance their defense can win them this game. But I feel like as long as their defense don't really give up big plays to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, I think, they should be fine. Like last year, they should have won that game last year. They were smarter, but they ended up slipping apart because the Bengals ended up getting a game-winning touchdown. But yeah, because if they can contain Joe Burrow and keep the Bengals offense off balance, I think there's a chance the Broncos win this game. But I think the Broncos can. But the Bengals defense is a little bit shaky. I don't think it's as good as the Broncos is. I think Bo Nix is capable enough, which I think, he could take advantage of that. So yeah, I think the Broncos find a way to win this game, but I think it will be close though. Next game, week 5 against Philadelphia Eagles. I think they'll lose to the Eagles just because the Eagles are at home and Philly's a tough place to play at. They got the better quarterback in this game, and I just think they're just a much more complete team. And I'm not really sure if the Broncos defense is going to be able to at least handle against an overpowering Eagles offensive line, because their offensive line of Philly is very, very strong, and I feel like they'll control your pass rush, and they got great weapons on offense that can really like win one-on-one matchups though. And the Eagles on the other side, the Eagles got a really good defensive line that can really like give Bo Nix and the Broncos offense some fits. And their secondary is young. I feel like their corners and their safeties will be a good matchup, for Cortland Sutton and Evan Ingram. So yeah. So basically I think the Eagles win that game for sure. But I think it's gonna be close though. Next game, week 6 against New York Jets. Obviously, this game is in London, but I actually got the Broncos beating the Jets just because, I feel like the Jets are probably going to be one of the worst teams in football. They got bad quarterback play in Justin Fields, which I don't think he's one of the worst starters in the league as a passer. I don't really see how the Jets are going to be able to move the ball successfully on the Broncos. Like, the Broncos defense should be able to at least take advantage of an underwhelming offensive line of the Jets. And, the Jets don't have the passing game to, like, get after that Broncos secondary. So I think, with Garrett, I know the Jets receiving core is not good. So with Garrett Wilson, the Broncos should lock him down and all that. So, yeah, especially the Broncos got the better passing game. And I just feel like, the Broncos are just a much more complete team, better quarterback, better coaching staff. Like, yeah, that's going to lead to a Broncos win. Next game, they play against the Giants. This could be a Russell Wilson revenge game. Now, the Giants is interesting, though. They could be a sneaky team because, the Broncos going to have to deal with that Giants front, though, because, they got big guys up front like Abdul Carter, Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Brian Burns. Like, that defensive front is scary. But I still think the Broncos will win just because I think the Broncos, got the better coaching staff. They're at home. They're the more complete team. And I think they can out-physical the Giants because I feel like their defensive line will find a way to at least, like, get after Russ and, like take advantage of, an atrocious offensive line the Giants have because they have one of the bottom 7 pass protecting units in football. And so, yeah. And, Russell Wilson, Malik Neighbors is going to be fun, but I feel like, as long as the Broncos, defense don't really give up big plays to Malik Neighbors, I think they should be fine. So I think it will be close, though, but I feel like the Broncos will win so that way Sean Payton can prove that Bo Nix was the right quarterback for him to be the quarterback of the future. So, yeah. Then week 8 against the Dallas Cowboys. This is an interesting game, but I got the Broncos beating. As much as I like the Cowboys, I got the Broncos beating the Cowboys because I just really think that the Broncos can out-physical the Cowboys because the weaknesses that the Cowboys have is their run defense and their ability to run the ball, which I think the Cowboys, another weakness of Dallas is their offensive line. So I think the Broncos, with their defensive front, I think they can take advantage of that. Especially, I just don't really think that the Cowboys offensively can get after that secondary because I believe that your corners can match up well with the Cowboys receivers really well. And, and I just really think that, maybe the Broncos can run the ball a little bit on the Cowboys. Maybe they can. So, yeah. So I think Denver's defense can win them this game, especially, the Broncos got the better coaching staff. They're at home. And I just think, I feel like the Cowboys could be a better version of the Broncos, in my opinion. But they're both similar to each other. So, but the game's in Denver. So, I got the Broncos winning. Then week 9 against the Houston Texans, I think they will lose to the Texans. Now here's why. I just think D'Amico Ryans, with his defensive scheme, is going to give the Broncos offense and Bo Nix a lot of problems because he did that in the past against Sean Payton. I feel like he can do it again because I feel like the Texans are one of the best defenses in football. They have really good pass rush, good cornerbacks, which I think they'll find a way to play sticky against an underwhelming receiving core of Denver. And I think their pass rush can find a way to at least get some pressure. And they're good against the run. And I don't really think the Broncos are going to be able to run the ball really good on them. But I think the only way that Denver can win this game is that their defense can get a pass rush on CJ Stroud, cause some mistakes and all that. So, yeah. And the Texans got an explosive offense as well. So I feel like that, that CJ Stroud, I think the Texans offensively can really get after that secondary because I have a feeling, if Vance Joseph tries to blitz too much, I think Stroud can make him pay because Stroud is really good and he knows where to go with the ball and all that. So, yeah. I think Texans will win because I think the Texans are just a more complete team, and also they got the better quarterback. So, yeah, I think the Texans will win that game. Then week 10 against the Las Vegas Raiders on Thursday on a short week. I think they'll beat the Raiders once this year. I'm going to say they win the first game against the Raiders just because I just have a feeling that, playing in Denver is tricky. And I just feel like the Broncos are just the more talented team. And they got the better, defense in my opinion. So yeah. I know the Raiders are going to be interesting. I love Geno. I like the coaching staff. I mean, they got some weird weapons, but I don't think the Raiders have a vertical threat on the outside to get after the Broncos defense. So, yeah, and even though the Broncos did swept them last season, I could see them doing it again. So I think the Broncos win that matchup. And also they played the Raiders in week 14. I think the Raiders will win the second matchup just because the Raiders, have owned them for the last couple of years. And the Raiders, so yeah, and their defense has totally given the Broncos offense tons of fits. Yeah, but the Raiders could be interesting though, but I don't think they're good. But I just have a feeling the Raiders are going to win that game. Then week 11 against the Chiefs. I think they'll beat the Chiefs once this year. So I'm just going to say they're going to beat the Chiefs the first game just because, Kansas City's traveling to Denver. And the Broncos defense did play the Chiefs offense pretty well. Even the last game without the Chiefs starters, the Broncos defense just really dominated in that game. They dismantled the Chiefs. So, yeah. But I feel like the Broncos will have more to play for because they could be looking for a playoff spot by then. But I think the Chiefs are a better team, but I just have a feeling the Broncos find a way to pull this one off. Then they get the bye week 12. Then after the bye week, they play on the road against Commanders on Sunday night primetime football game. This is an interesting game, but I'm going to go with the Commanders to win because I have a feeling that Commanders, I just think, the Commanders' offense could be a little tough to stop because, Jaden Daniels is really good against good defenses. I have a feeling, and also the Commanders, I just have a feeling that offensively, I think they'll find a way to control the game, keep Bo Nix off the field and all that. But in my opinion, I feel like the Broncos do have a better defense than Commanders, but the Commanders don't have much of a pass rush. But their secondary is solid, but they like to place man coverage. But I kind of really feel like if the Broncos can't beat their man coverage, then I think there's a chance that the Commanders, that lead to the ball in the Commanders' hands. So, yeah, and I feel like Dan Quinn will have a good game plan against Sean Payton's offense. So, yeah, I feel like, he's going to, keep Bo Nix on his toes. I feel like his defense can rattle him. And I still think Commanders can still get pressure, too, even though they don't have a pass rush. But I feel like, they're weak against a run, but against a pass, they're not. They're a little bit weak. But I think the Commanders can win this game at home. If this game was in Denver, I would go with the Broncos. Then week 15 against the Green Bay Packers. This is a tricky game. It could go either way, but I'm gonna come back to that one because that one's a tough one to predict. Then week 16 against the Jacksonville Jags. I think they'll beat the Jags just because the Broncos are just a much more complete team and have the better coaching staff. They're at home, and I just have a feeling that the Jags are going to be dealing with some learning because they have a rookie head coach, and Jacksonville. I feel like they're going to be pretty interesting this year. They got some good weapons on offense like Brian Thomas and Travis Hunter and Travis Etienne. Their offensive line is a bit sketchy, and their defense is a bit sketchy. Especially, their defense was totally ranked as like bottom. They were like the worst deep pass defense in football last year, but their run defense was okay. But I feel like that Bo Nix can take advantage of a suspect Jaguar secondary, which I think he has the arm and the mechanics to do that. And I just feel like the Broncos do have the better defense as well. I think their defense will make more plays. And I think, they'll find a way to at least like get after Trevor Lawrence, make life difficult on them, especially with their pass rush. And they do have the corners to match up well with the Jags receivers. So I feel like as long as you don't really give up big plays to Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas, they should be fine. And then week 17 against Kansas City Chiefs on Christmas Day on Thursday on a short week. They'll split with the Chiefs, so I'm giving them the loss right there just because the Chiefs, they always play at home against the Broncos really well. Like, the Broncos are not really good on the road against the Chiefs. And I feel like the Chiefs are just a more complete team, have better quarterback, and they're at home. Like, yeah, I think the Chiefs will win. And then last game, week 18 against the Chargers. It just depends on if both teams need to win to get to the playoffs. But I'm probably going to say the Broncos will split with the Chargers. So I'm giving them the Broncos a win right there just because I feel like the Broncos, they pretty much own the Chargers. Like, think about it. Like, their defense, can give the Chargers offense tons of fits, and they do have the personnel to do that. And also, I still think the Chargers will have more to play for. Like, both the two teams have more to play for because both the two teams could be a team that they could make the playoffs or they could barely miss it. So, yeah. So, basically, I have the Broncos at 10-6-1 right now. So, basically, that leads to the last game against the Packers. Now, the Packers is tricky. Now, the Packers are good on offense. They can run the ball. They got a great receiving core that's explosive in the passing game. Their offensive line is solid, but their defense, could be sketchy, especially their pass rush, but their secondary is solid. This is a tough one to predict. I feel like that's a game the Packers could totally win. Now, I kind of remember last time when these two teams played, the Broncos did win with Russell Wilson, and the game was close. But you know what? I'm going to take the Broncos to beat the Packers because I think the Broncos can match the Packers' physicality. And I think, that their defense can really give the Packers, offense and Jordan Love tons of fits. Because I think they can, because this is a good matchup because they got the pass rush to get after Love. They have the corners to match up well with the Packers' young receivers. And I think they can play sticky against an underwhelming receiving core. And the Packers' defense, sometimes they're soft at times. I think Bo Nix can totally pick them apart. So, yeah. And I just have a feeling that, the Broncos, I feel like there's a chance the Packers can win if they can get their offense going and if Matt LaFleur can find a way to at least like have answers for Vance Joseph's defense. And then the Packers defense can like get after Bo Nix and all that. So, yeah, I feel like the game will be close. But I kind of have a feeling that the Packers are kind of the more complete team than the Broncos. But I just have a feeling that the Broncos will win because it's in Denver. Who knows? And it could be cold there. If the game was in Lambeau, I would lean towards Green Bay. So overall, I have the Broncos going 11-6, which that's good enough to make the playoffs and good enough enough for the wild card round. So yeah. So I feel like 11-6 is good enough for the Broncos to make the playoffs. Like as you look at the Broncos schedule, it's tough because they have to play the Chargers twice, the Chiefs twice. They even got to play the Raiders twice. They play the Bengals. They even got to play the NFC East. Like they got to play the Eagles, Commanders, and Cowboys. They got to play the Texans. And they got to play the Packers too. So yeah. The only good teams they don't play is like the Niners and the Rams. And they don't really like play like the Ravens or the Bills. So yeah. So I think I kind of really feel that the Broncos, their defense is solid. I feel like the Broncos 11-6 is good enough for the playoffs because I feel like their defense will take another step, and I feel like Bo Nix looks like will take another step in year two to prove that he's the guy and he's like a future star. And so yeah, and I feel like their offense will be the same, but I still think they need to add still got flaws. Like they need a number two receiver to complement, Cortland Sutton. The offensive line is still good, and I love the coaching staff as well. So yeah, but I think the Broncos will probably fight in second place with the Chargers, second and third place with the Chargers, because I have the Chiefs win the division because of history, and the Chiefs pretty much have owned the division for years since Peyton Manning retired. So yeah. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. How you feel about the Broncos? Like this is Emmanuel Jones from Big Fan. Well, thank you guys for watching. See you guys later. Peace.